Welcome, everyone. I'm Mike Moisand.
And I'm Ashley Ward.
And you're listening to the What Matters podcast, and our mission
to spotlight top RIAs, wealth managers, and investment professionals who are redefining wealth management.
Join us as we dive into their journey, strategies, and insights.
Whether you're an investor or an inspiring pro, this is for you.
Get ready for impactful conversations on the What Matters podcast. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of the What Matters podcast, where we delve into the world of finance and wealth management. I'm Mike Moisand.
And I'm Ashley Ward.
And today we have an esteemed guest, Mr. Daniel Moisand. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Principal and financial advisor and one of the owners of Moisand, Fitzgerald Tamayo Financial Planning and Wealth Management. The firm is based in Orlando, Florida, with a second office in Melbourne, Florida, and a third office in Tampa, Florida. I hope I was correct on all of that. Welcome to our show today, Dan.
Yeah, very good. Yes, please call me Dan. Daniel's what I hear when I'm in the doghouse. So let's not do that. And I haven't heard Danny since I was a small boy. So Dan is definitely the preferred way to go there. Nice to meet both.
So Dan, you're the only financial advisor in your Melbourne office, if I'm correct. And you've been regarded by many as one of America's top financial advisors for retirees and near retirees. It's great to have you with us today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So Dan, your extensive career has made you a prominent figure in financial planning professionalism. To kick things off, could you share a bit about your journey and your origin story? You know, what led you to become one of America's top financial advisors for retirees and near retirees?
What led me to that? It's kind of people to say that. So my story, it's not unusual for a story of people getting into the business 30 years ago, which is when I did. I stumbled upon it. I moved up to Greenville, North Carolina, where my girlfriend was living. She was the only person I knew, and I needed a job. I didn't go there for a job. I went there for her. We have been married 32 years.
Congratulations.
Started dating 40 years ago. We were high school sweethearts.
Wow.
So the move was worth it.
The move was well worth it. Absolutely. That all came out great. But I needed a job, and I had a finance degree from Florida State University. But I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. I just knew I needed to go to North Carolina. I always had more of an interest in the personal finance topics in school than the corporate. We took a class where we talked about reorganizing the capital structure of Exxon and things like that. And that was all really interesting, but I was always more interested in the personal stuff. But back then, slim pickings, getting a job out there, don't know anybody. Ended up working for an insurance company for a year, which is what my dad would call a character building experience. Yeah. Not knowing anybody, I would call on tobacco farmers in eastern North Carolina, talk to them about their life insurance. They were thrilled to see a 22-year-old in a suit in the 90-degree heat out there. But I learned a lot about a lot of things, including myself, people, insurance, and it's all been very beneficial to my career since then. But along the way, I stumbled upon financial planning, which was being done in the area then primarily by a company called IDS, which turned into American Express Financial Advisors and subsequently spun off to what's now known as Ameriprise. I don't remember all the years for all those changes, but when I started with them, they were IDS, and when I left, they were American Express. But I kind of got the bug. When I got my certification, became a CFP professional in 1994. There were 30-something thousand CFPs, and about 10 of them were or had worked for IDS at one point in time. It's a pretty shocking statistic, but they were early believers in the process. It's a more holistic approach, and could certainly pick at the details of how that got done. But it showed me that it was indeed a superior way to give personal financial advice. And I've been identifying myself as a financial planner ever since.
So were you door knocking to these tobacco farmers?
There was a connection between the farmers and the insurance company.
Okay.
Not a particularly great one, but it was certainly not an ice cold introduction. In some cases, I would never say any of them were particularly warm, but tobacco farmers are, for the most part, fantastic people. They are so much fun. They're so interesting. They love making fun of me. I enjoy being made fun of, you know, still do. You can't take yourself too seriously. Take my work seriously, but not myself. And yeah, I would, it was a horrible year at the time, but it didn't take long after that in retrospect, I was very grateful for having gone through it.
So let me ask you this. So what year did you open up your current, what year did you open up your company?
Yeah, so if you fast forward out of North Carolina, Kelly and I got married. We moved back down to this area. This is where we went to high school. I could see the high school over the river here. Could almost see the ocean. Melbourne's on the Atlantic coast. It's the space coast. So our area code is 321. And a lot of my clients are actual rocket scientists. But the town we grew up in was called Satellite Beach, Florida. So we came back here, and one thing led to another, and I could. It was a big corporation, and they moved very, very slowly. And I went to a conference in Orlando, met some of the brass there, and they were telling me about all these things that they're going to do and how long it's going to take to do them. I'm like, man, this is just too slow.
Right.
So I ended up breaking off with a colleague of mine, and we affiliated with LPL in 1997. Independent broker dealer, very strong compliance department at the time. The chairman, Todd Robinson, had actually chaired the NASDR, which is now FINRA, and set up a state registered RIA to do the financial planning. And then all the brokerage and insurance business was done through LPL. And within a few years, I just got, this was the extent of the analysis I did. I got tired of having two pain in the neck regulators. I had FINRA and I had the state of Florida. And I figured one was better than the other. And most people, even if they can't articulate it, they would prefer the fiduciary approach, the RIA approach. So I dumped the FINRA licenses and went fee only in 2000. My business partner did not want to do that. So we had a very amicable split, and I was on my own. A few years later, I connected with my current partners, and we've been.
What year did you go fee only?
Year 2000.
Gotcha.
And then by 2003, we'd formally put together a partnership with Charlie Fitzgerald, Ron Tamayo, and one other person. And we've been, the three of us have been, Ron, Charlie, and I have been partners for 20 years now.
So let me ask you this. So you started off, so you guys get live in 2003, right?
Mhm.
Things are rolling.
Yep.
And then 2008 hits. Do you mind me asking what your AUM was kind of ramping up to 2008? And then what was the low point of it?
You can ask. I don't know if I can tell you that accurately. For some reason, I have in 2003, we got together, grand total about 70 million, maybe 80, somewhere in that range. By 2008, it had more than doubled. We were well into the 200 million. And then the crash came and cut that back significantly.
Wow. So now building your company up to, let's say, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because RA database is not always accurate, $1 billion, if I'm not mistaken?
This one I know, yes. We just crossed $1 billion, probably for the first time. You know how market fluctuations are, right? Yeah.
Wow.
In December, I think the final ADV number will be over $1 billion. And it's so weird because life is not any different with it at $1 billion than it was at 900, you know. But it does look really cool to see the one and the extra comma in there. So, you know, you don't get a whole lot more for being $1 billion than 999, but it is kind of fun, and it just kind of stands out because none of us ever thought we would. It wasn't really an ambition, right? First thing we want to do is we get to 100 million. Oh, we'll be doing great. You know, oh, if we could just get to 200, everything will be great. So it's gonna be wonderful. And it just, you just keep moving the goalposts, as they say.
So let me ask you this: how many total advisors do you guys have? Obviously, there might. I'm not sure if the three of you still chirp with clients or not. But what's the total size of the company?
Yeah, we do all still work with clients. There are 10 certified financial planner professionals on staff. There are 7 owners. One of them's not client facing at all, Sarah. So we have managed to spread the ownership out a little bit. In fact, the 3 of us are no longer the largest shareholders. We each have our G2s have a bigger percentage of the our 2 G2s have a bigger percentage of the firm than any of the 3 of us.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So so since you guys have grown the firm, have you guys done that organically? Have you made acquisitions?
We've done it 100% organically. And
Wow.
by that, I don't. We don't even have any of that growth coming from, because sometimes people will call this organic, and call it whatever you want, doesn't matter. But recruiting somebody with a quote book, we haven't done that. It's all been one client at a time, one new client at a time. Yep.
That's great. So every successful venture has its secrets. What do you consider to be some of the strategies or insights that you believe would be, game changers in building your firm to what it is today?
Yeah, I know. I think the big secret is there are no secrets. It's I hate to use a sports metaphor, but I can't think of another one, so I'll do it. It's just basic blocking and tackling. Michael Jordan, when he won the championship for the 3rd time, they asked him what he's going to do in the off season. He says he's going to work on his ball handling skill. It's just basic fundamental stuff. You cannot. We didn't feel like we could. Still don't feel like we could compete by doing things like advertising. There's just too many people with much deeper pockets, much more sophisticated staffs. And at the end of the day, in a very brief ad, no matter what the medium, you can't really say a whole lot that's going to stand out and motivate somebody to give you a call. But you could do a lot of little things that cost a lot less money to build awareness, to be active in your community. The trick is to do things that are worth noting and then making sure people notice, So being out there, it's not the case anymore. The way publishing has changed, but we were very successful in very strategic use of press releases for local papers, to get the word out when we did something interesting. So yeah, I don't think there's any great secret to it. It all starts with clients, and it sounds a little cliche, put clients first, but man, it is true. It is so much less expensive to keep a client than to get a new one. Time,
Right.
money, resources, etc. And if you really take good care of them, enough of them are wired to want to help their friends, they will refer you. And the same with centers of influence. When you find a good attorney or a real estate agent or a mortgage broker or a therapist or whatever, and they do a good job for your client and add value there, it's natural for them to be appreciative of you sending them clients, and a certain percentage of them will send you clients right back. So it's building relationships. Just keeping a great relationship with clients and keeping great relationships with people that can send you additional clients.
So have you guys any of the 3 partners there? Have any of your children followed in your guys' footsteps in joining the organization?
No, and it's so maddening. I tried like hell too. My daughter and my son are both wired to help in various ways, right? So my son works at the Humane Society in Asheville, North Carolina.
That's really cool, though.
Yeah, he likes helping dogs and cats and other animals and pets more than people. So he's out there basically forging adoptions, which is great. And then my daughter, she ended up getting a doctorate in physical therapy. She works outside of Boston, helps people that way. But I could not get them interested in the financial part of it at all. It just didn't resonate with them. So, what can you do?
And let me ask you this: when you said that you guys had sold, ownership and have 7 partners in the company now, was that kind of a succession plan for you guys to kind of slowly get out over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's twofold. I mean, part of it is it's a good and a bad thing. It's very difficult to get rid of partners once they bought in, right?
Right.
So when you find somebody that really adds value and becomes indisposable to the business, you want them to stick around, and you worry less about losing them, right? By offering them ownership when they buy in. So there's a retention element to that. Um, but yes, it's definitely part of the succession plan. I mean, we're of a size and have been for a while I've gotten 3 of them just today. Emails from big outfits that you've probably heard of, wanting to know about, our succession plan and partnering and growth and all that. And it's extremely flattering. We really appreciate the attention, and we would love for it to continue, but we're not in a place to go down that route because we do want to stay as independent as we possibly can. And we want the future owners to be current owners with get larger stakes. And we have other folks within the organization that we would love to see grow and develop and become so essential to our operations that we would want to be partners with them as well. So we're focusing on that.
So what would you say the plan over, let's call it the next 3 to 5 years, would be for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, the plan is to get a little bit more, I hate to even use the word corporate. So when we got together 20 years ago, we had 70 million in assets under management. It was 3 not completely separate practices, but there were quite a bit of variability between how a client would experience working with me and working with Charlie and working with Ron. And over time, we've gotten more systematic about that. But now as an organization with 26 employees, you have to be much more organized in a different way than you were 10 years ago with, half those employees. And you got to keep growing. So you have to focus more deliberately and purposefully on what you're doing, particularly with marketing, in order to grow, to provide the opportunities for the next generation.
Right. I think I've always seen it through being a business owner, that when you do have the younger generation underneath you, it comes to a point where, especially nowadays, right? I remember, prior to being in private equity, and Ashley and I being famous on this podcast, of course, I had seen prior to private equity, being in the mortgage business. Was where I met Ashley 7 years ago. My twin brother and I, we were in the mortgage-backed security world. So we had sold our company in 2020, and we had, over 1,000 employees in each of the different sectors. And with that being said, oftentimes when you have entrepreneurs, especially after the 2008-9 crash, to build your company at that point, you provided a hub to suck up as many entrepreneurs as you can and let them run autonomously underneath your umbrella, almost like a TAMP in this space would have been, is what people were doing then. We took the opposite approach and went a different route. It ended up working out for us. But often the reason why we took that route is because I personally didn't want to have a bunch of entrepreneurs working underneath us, threatening to leave every time there was the rates dropped and they caught some wings and whatnot. But with you saying that, I've seen that happen a lot in this industry. I respect that you've identified that and that you guys have bifurcated the ownership, to keep the atmosphere, keep the culture, and to continue the growth.
Yeah, I mean, it's an overused term the last few years, the whole culture thing, but it's also like any cliched kind of thing. It's true, right? There's a very strong element that's what matters more than anything. And we long ago got to a point where we realized that losing pretty much any of our employees would be more traumatic to the business than losing our highest revenue client.
Right.
And when that dawns on you, you start to select your employees, treat your employees very carefully, because it's so, we're 26 employees now, but we weren't always that big. And even at 26, one bad hire can cause a lot of problems.
I couldn't agree with that statement more. I'll tell you this, and Ashley could probably attest to this. Even when believe we're at 1,400 employees, if you had someone high up there in executive management, that was, just, how do you say it? They were just accustomed to getting their own way in other places. But when they come to you, we're a bigger company. So we didn't need the volume that they were bringing outside. If we lost the volume, it might have been 10%, right? That's replaceable. Other companies that they were with before, they lost the volume that was 40 or 50%. They're not willing to do that, right? So, we've always had it. We always had the MO that we were willing to let go of, we were willing to fire, the top producer and willing to fire our top client, right? But I will say, you can't afford I agree with that statement wholeheartedly. You can't afford for one bad apple to rotten them all. Yeah.
Yep.
So let me ask you this, Dan. In a competitive landscape, how do you manage to differentiate your firm and create a value proposition that resonates with clients? I know you mentioned how it's hard to compete with some of the big dogs, advertising, marketing. So how do you create that unique proposition with clients?
Yeah, so I think because so many of our new clients come to us because of somebody else pointing them our direction, either a current client. We have new clients that were referred to us by prospective clients that declined to hire. And they did that because in the process of talking to them as a prospective client, we're very clear on who we work best with and the types of people that we don't. We don't put any judgment on it. It's just we're better suited for certain types of people. When we talk about investment management, for instance, what we sell is boring. We do it the most boring way possible. The markets provide as much excitement as we need. We don't want to add to it by trying to be the guru. That's not why we're here. If you want somebody to tell you that they can, keep you ahead of the market through their incredible savvy, I'm sure you'll find somebody to say that. God bless you. We're telling you right now, it's not us. We don't even think that exists reliably. But that's a philosophical issue. We are telling you we can't do it. We're not even going to try. You're going to have boring ass index funds and DFA stuff, and there's no Bitcoin. There's no watching, earnings reports.
No penny stocks.
No, and we joke about it. CNBC junkies. One of our screening questions is, do you watch cable news and cable finance? And people that say yes, then we ask them with a big smile, as nice as we can, are you willing to quit? And they kind of look at you, or they laugh, or they have some kind of reaction, and it just opens up the conversation, right? As a former Boy Scout, I want to be an active citizen. I want to be informed. So, I watch a little bit of news, but I've learned to not take what I see on TV to convince me that the whole world's going to hell in a handbasket. America's about to be a third world country, and I need to sell everything, buy gold, and bury it in the backyard. Right?
You know what? You're so right there. You're so right there, because first and foremost, the thing is that by the time they get the information, right, it could be 2 or 3 weeks old. And number two, it's like, well, I saw on Jim Cramer say today, so I think that's great that you bring that up to them.
Yeah. And if the conversation's going well and you've got some rapport, you can always ask their spouse after she watches that, or after he watches that, does he seem like he's in a good mood to you? and if they don't watch it together, the answer is almost always no. He's always miserable. It's like, okay, so I want you to be informed. You should vote. My grandfather was in the Pacific, and he made me promise you're going to vote every election, even if you don't like any of them. And there's going to be a lot of times you don't like any of them, but you got to vote. Yeah, a lot of people paid a big penalty for you, a big price for you to be able to do that. And I want you to vote your conscience, and you don't have to agree with me on issues, but you can't turn on any kind of media, TV or otherwise, and let it convince you that life is crap and you've got to do something radical with your assets, because it has never been true for very long.
You know,
Yeah.
I can tell you that when people on YouTube, right, when individuals are given bad news about the market, they'll get 5 times the amount of views as if they're, going to give good news about the market, right? So that when you placate that into journalism, that's exactly what's going to happen. And
Correct.
that's really smart that you guys point that out.
The negative campaigning. I mean, why do politicians always do that? Because that
Right.
gets better results than being nice,
Right.
So
Right.
you just have to see it for what it's worth. All that stuff, it's media, and it's about clicks and eyeballs and selling ads and all that stuff. They're by design provocative, and you just have to protect your own mental health and your own asset by not getting too wound up.
Yeah.
Watch it if you want, but put it in the right perspective. And
Right.
if you can't handle it, don't watch it. You're not going to miss anything. If something big happens, I assure you, you'll know about it pretty quickly.
Right. If anything, you might be in a better mood not watching it.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
And so I try to watch the news as least as possible, but the landscape of wealth management, it's ever evolving. What, in your opinion, does the future of wealth management look like? What trends, technologies, strategies do you foresee shaping the future of the industry?
Yeah. So when I first got started with financial planning up in North Carolina, I would tell people I was a financial planner, and they'd tell me they didn't want any insurance. And then about 10 years later, you'd tell people you're a financial planner, and they'd want to talk to you about what tech stocks to buy. The trend has been moving away from the service being too narrowly focused on one product or one service. So advice is getting much more holistic, getting much more along the lines of classic financial planning. I don't see anything slowing down that juggernaut, because personal finance has done nothing but get more complex over the last 30 plus years I've been involved with it. It just keeps marching on, getting more and more complex. And I don't see that going away at all. So the need to be able to take a high level view, get your arms around all of the resources and resources you have available to you, obstacles that you can foresee, some that you might worry about, to get your arms around that and come up with a plan that coordinates all these different areas of your personal finances. It's not going to get simpler. Technology can help us wade through some of it a little bit faster. I mean, I don't spend my time the same way I spent it 30 years ago because of technology. I mean, we literally had to go to a library to get the value line survey to see what a mutual fund's return was in a given year, right? And I can get that like in 2 seconds. I don't even have to key it in. I can do it by voice command, and it'll pop up now, right? That's completely changed. So I'm sure how we spend our time as practitioners will change going forward, enabled by technology. But that trend of the more holistic approach is just going to keep coming. And I think at some point in time, I don't know when it'll happen. I don't know if I'll see it, frankly, in my lifetime, because we're so slow for change in this area. But eventually, people will be regulated in a much more sensible way, in alignment with what clients are asking for. Clients want their advisors to be held to a fiduciary standard, to put their interests first. And right now, we're in this weird area where you've got Reg BI, which the SEC specifically said was not a fiduciary standard, and it's not. But then you've got all these best interest laws going in all these different states. You've got NAIC with a best interest regulation for model regulations for insurance sales. And there's just a mishmash of garbage, right? And there's no uniform approach to it. So Eventually, I think that's where it's going to go because the people will demand it, and the people almost always get what they want eventually. I don't know how far eventually is. I don't see anything imminent in that area at all. I mean, the DOL's got a new rule out that they want to put in place. That's a small step kind of in that direction. But whether it survives court challenge or not, I don't know. And, how long it'll take to get anywhere is a mystery to me. But if you're going about serving clients in a more holistic, financial planning oriented way, and you're acting like you're going to be held accountable to a real fiduciary standard, whether you legally you will be or not, I think you're on the right track and the future's golden for you. Go buy yourself some more shades. The future's very bright.
Well, let me ask you this. I have a wrap-up question here for you, and it certainly probably is not going to be a short answer for you. Number one, what you don't have to answer this one, right? Because I don't want you to feel like you're pinned to it. What's your economic outlook? What sectors do you think are going to be moving? There's obviously AI in the mix right now. I mean, the market's just topped out on a couple of the different indexes. Most recently, the SPY, or the S&P 500, I should say. I follow the SPY, so sorry for using the improper vernacular there. What sectors do you see, are gonna make a move? And, with interest rates being where they're at, what do you see there? You've have 30 plus years in the industry. You've gotten to see lots of different things happen over the years. And, I know that the world operates a lot differently these days, but we're in a situation where we have an election year. We've lent out a lot of money. We've had unprecedented events like COVID. And we've had, different situations happen. What do you think the outcome to all that's going to look like?
Exactly the same as what you just described. So what I've learned over time, looking at market history and experiencing it for myself, I think it's just completely and simply foolish to make a big bet on what the economy is going to do or how any particular segment of our sector of the market is going to react to the economy. You can get the economic prediction right, and the stocks don't go the way you wanted to. We've had good markets and bad economies, and bad markets and good economies,
Right,
and all that. I can tell you that capitalism, to paraphrase Churchill, is the worst thing ever, except for everything else. I mean, you think about all of the stuff that we have gone through over the years, and here we are today at an all-time high. That's just what happens, right? And the reason for it, it's not just dumb luck. I mean, the reason that the stock market continues to go up is because when you invest in stocks, you're investing as an owner in companies. And no matter what is thrown at a company, whether it's a tax code change, it's a new president or a new Congress, or an economic shock, or COVID, or terrorist attacks, or whatever it is, those corporations don't just say, oh, well, that's bad, we quit, it's not going to do anything. They're adaptable. They make changes. The profit motive doesn't go away. And sometimes those changes work, and sometimes they don't. But in the aggregate, which is what you should be invested in as a long-term investor, in the aggregate, this capitalism thing, this brutal business of putting each other's competition out of business, it fosters innovation, it fosters wealth creation. And if you do it right, you're in it for the long term. You don't need to make predictions about these things. I'm 100% convinced that the best place for most of my money today is in the stock market. Not because it's going to be worth something in particular a quarter from now, or a year from now, or 5 years from now. But in 20 years, it's almost a sure thing it's going to be worth substantially more than it is now, and it'll be enough to cover inflationary effects over that 20 years. So, I don't spend a whole lot of time on economic forecasting. My personal opinion is there's a lot of really cool technologies out there that I'm excited about. This whole, not so much the Chat GPT, write an article in the voice of Samuel L. Jackson from Pulp Fiction. It comes back with a bunch of F-bombs in it. That's not it. It's that it's crossing over into a point where its day-to-day use can be put to work for me to make me more efficient and effective. We're experimenting with things like summarizing meeting notes. That process. Once you tell it what you want and it learns what you want, it speeds it up immensely.
Yeah.
Instead of taking an hour after a meeting to get notes of the CRM, it's taking 10, 15 minutes. That's great. So there's stuff like that. But as far as turning that into an investment theme, right? I mean, what are people, blockchain, fantastic technology, really cool stuff. I mean, the authenticity of what you're getting, security, all that stuff. There's a lot of great things built in there. But that's different than going out and speculating on a Bitcoin ETF, right? They're two different things. Bitcoin's built on blockchain, but it isn't blockchain. So, turning these things about what you see demographically, economically, with various sectors into an actionable investment tactic, I kind of shy away from that. It's blown up in many people's faces over the years in many different ways. I can't tell you how many promising cures for cancer I've seen. Got to be real careful about that stuff. But we're treating cancer better than ever before.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I don't want to get too caught in the weeds with that, and I discourage clients from doing it anymore.
Well, I think those are some wise words for us to end off today's episode with. Thank you so much, Dan, for joining Mike and I on the show today and for sharing your insights and your perspectives with our audience. It's been such a pleasure having you today.
Well, thanks. It's been fun. I enjoyed it. Anytime.
And to our listeners, stay tuned for more episodes where we uncover what truly matters in the world of finance. Thank you, everyone. Until next time.